Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulih al-Ameen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. So before I begin the lecture, I'd like to tell you about why I'm in town, first of all, and to try to convince you in a few minutes to take this upcoming course with me. That I will be back inshallah in October to teach a course here. It's called Shahada, GreensideDawah. And basically, obviously, as you know, this is a Maghrib course and it's a double weekend course. So inshallah, we'll be spending a total of 32 or so hours together. And I want to try in a few minutes to try to convince you that this is a good course to take, inshallah. And if I didn't believe it, obviously, I wouldn't be or I shouldn't be teaching it. Before I used to have this course, it was called How to Get a Shahada in 10 Minutes. And it was a 6-hour workshop. And it centered around giving you the tools and the ability with which you can speak to a non-Muslim, and within 10 minutes they can become Muslim, or 15, or 20, or 25, or not ever. It's not like a guarantee. Some people thought it was like a guarantee or something like that. Now, this new course, it has those techniques in it, but it also deals with how to deal with Muslims as well, how to give da'wah to Muslims, which is a big problem that we have. How to follow up with the non-Muslims that revert to Islam. And it has also issues like the atheist, how to deal with the atheist. A lot of Muslims are scared. They don't know how to talk to an atheist. They can handle anybody, but they cannot handle the atheist because they think he's the toughest person to deal with. And it's the exact opposite. Actually, the atheist is the easiest person to deal with. But there are certain key things you need to know about the atheist and atheism. And once you understand them, you'll find that the atheist is very easy to deal with, inshallah, not a problem. And also there are other things, like a person who is a homosexual. You might run into those people in da'wah. What do? They're interested in becoming Muslim. Or they agree with the tenets of Islam, but then what? They tell you that they can't because they're, as they say, of that lifestyle. What do? You deal with that. There is a section in the notes, it's a very short section, it's like 1 page, that deals with the polytheist, someone who believes in more than one God. And basically I taught this before. I taught this in Australia, I taught it in South Africa. And I taught it in South Africa, then I returned a few months later, and we had a meeting with the students to see what were the results of taking the course. So one of them said, and in those notes it was page 59, 1 page that deals with polytheism. It basically asks a number of questions that convinces the person that polytheism is not a very good thing. He said, I took the course, and he said he and his brother attended the course. The same night, he said, we went home, and I saw my brother pick up the phone. He called his Hindu friend, and he went over the arguments on that 1 page, and by the end of the page, the guy took his shahada. So I'm proud of this story. I go to South Africa, to Australia to show off to those students with this story. I tell them this story, and one of them said the same thing happened to me. He said, tell me the details. He said, I took the course, I went home, I opened page 59, I called a Hindu friend of mine, I read from beginning to end, and the guy took his shahada. What's in page 59? You have to discover that in October, inshallah. But what we do in page 59 and other parts of the course is we tackle the mindset of the person. Yani if someone believes in more than one God, okay, there's actually a problem with this belief. So what you do is you ask certain questions that get them to see that any which way you look at it, there's a problem with believing in more than one God. So what I'm really doing is I'm tackling the mindset that they're in. I'll give you the example with the Trinity. Realistically, the Trinity is something that doesn't make sense. True or false? True. That 3 things are one even though they're physically separate. And there is not even any analogy on this planet that you can use to explain how 3 things can be separate but still one. Actually one, not one in essence, yeah? So what you have to your advantage then is that they believe in something that doesn't make good sense to them, that they can't really digest, that they can't really comprehend. So what's to your advantage then is you have Tawheed and they have this belief. The way they end Trinity discussions or discussions about the divinity of Jesus, things like that, is to tackle the mindset of someone who believes in Trinity. And I'll tell you, before we developed this technique, we used to sit and have 3 or 5 hour debates with, or if you want to call them debates, we'd sit with like 5 missionaries, people who teach Bible study at the university, and we'd sit for 3-4 hours. I'll give them this passage, that passage, this passage. And in the end, yes, you would get them, and they would say, yeah, okay, I don't know how to answer that. But it took 4 hours. With this new technique, 5 minutes, we're done with Trinity. 10 minutes, we're done with Trinity. So again, obviously I wouldn't be teaching this course unless I really believed in the techniques. And I'll end by telling you that I've been teaching the Dawah course to non-Muslims for the last 7 years or more. And over the years, I have only the success stories to prove that it's not just a waste of 6 hours, right? So I would get emails from all around the world. There was a young man in Toronto, and he heard the workshop online, and he started a Dawah group, and they brought 160 people to Islam, 95% of them remaining upon Islam. That's the amazing part of the story. I get emails from Saudi Arabia, people working with non-Muslims. They're all over the world. I got an interesting email from the UK. A brother heard the workshop online. It's like 5 parts. He heard 2.5 parts of it. Then he paused it to go get dinner. He said, on the way, I saw a non-Muslim. He's sending me this in the email. He said, I saw a non-Muslim on the way. So I said something from the course. He said a question that was mentioned in there. He said he responded in a way that was expected from the course. I said something else, and the guy took his shahada. So he writes, he says, I only listened to half of it, and the guy took his shahada. What happens when I hear the whole thing? So, you get a shahada every 10 minutes, that's what happens. I'm just kidding. So that's what. So that's, and what date is that? What date is the course?
Last 2 weekends of October.
Last 2 weekends of October. So, and there's more information here with the brothers, maybe the posters or flyers are out. So I would like to see you, when it comes to that. And inshallah there will be great benefit, and there will be benefit beyond just how to talk to Muslims or non-Muslims. There's so much stuff in that course as well. And perhaps some of the brothers here may testify to some of those things. That's the first thing. Now getting into our topic, and we're not really going over the story of the Battle of Badr, but we're talking about some of the benefits that came out of the Battle of Badr. And when it comes to that, I want to talk about the seerah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because really, the seerah is absolutely phenomenal and it's magnificent. But what has happened is that we haven't given it its proper place, the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are 2 ways, or there are different levels of reading the seerah. The lowest level, this is not any scholarly classification, by the way, it's just some comments. Yeah. The lowest level is just to read the seerah as you read the story, and you get enjoyment out of that. And no doubt all of us, when we read the seerah, some parts you're sad, you cry, some parts you're happy, sometimes you feel anxiety, sometimes you're excited. And this is what you get on the basic level out of a story. Just some kind of excitement, some kind of fun from reading it. Then there is a higher and deeper level to reading the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's when we focus on getting wisdoms, lessons, and benefits out of the events and out of the stories. And all you have to do, when you put yourself in this mindset, you have the natural ability then to see every story and come up with benefits out of it. Now, the seerah is so deep that we can say one story, and we can come out with, and everyone could come out with different benefits from that same one story. And this is unlike the biography of anyone else on earth. And most people, you can read their biography once, twice, then khalas, you're done, right? I mean, how many times can you read the biography of Abraham Lincoln? How many times even Malcolm X, rahimahullah, how many times can you read his biography? And 1, 2, and then khalas, I don't want to read it again, okay? Yeah? But the seerah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you keep reading it over and over and over again. And every time, you can look at it from a different angle and get different benefits from it. So perhaps some of you in the audience are teachers. So the teacher reads the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, and they see teaching techniques. Some du'at, you read the seerah, same book, and you get da'wah techniques as whatever mode you're in at that time, whatever mindset that you're in, or basically whatever discipline that you came from. So those who do PR, they see PR benefits in it, marketing benefits in it, so on and so forth. It's so many. So it's so rich that 50 different people can read it, and each one of them can come with benefits from their angles, based on their discipline, or even their personality. There was actually one, and I wish I could have attended this lecture. There was someone who was a geologist, and he gave a lecture on geology using the seerah of the Prophet. Now I know you're waiting for me now to tell you how he did it. I have no clue how he did it, but he did it because he was looking at it from that mindset. He was looking at the narrations and the terrain that they described. The flat land, the rocky area, the lava rocks, and he gave a lecture based on that. And so then we want to read the seerah at another higher level, not just for the sake of enjoyment, the story goes like this, but also what's the benefit that comes out of it? What do I come away with? And just to give you simple examples, we all know that the Prophet ﷺ was a shepherd before he was commissioned or sent as a prophet. And he also said in a hadith, مَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا وَقَدْ رَعَى الْغَنَمِ, that there has not been a prophet except that he has herded or been a shepherd of sheep. He herded sheep. Right. So then we discuss what are some of the benefits. Why is it that Allah Azza wa Jal made the prophets do this specific job before becoming a prophet? And now I'll ask you, what are some of these benefits? You tell me. Yes, sir?
Patience.
Now, absolutely, patience. You learn patience. And the prophet needs patience. Any da'i needs patience. So you learn patience because you take the sheep out to herd in the morning to the pasture. Then you do what? You just sit. For the youth in the audience, no Game Boys, no PS3 or 2 or P. And you just sit. So you learn patience. Excellent. What else? What else? Yes, sir?
The ability to cater your personality based on each individual sheep.
Okay. So the ability to react based on each individual sheep. Okay. What else?
Dealing with innocent creatures.
Okay. Dealing with innocent creatures. Now. Responsibility. Because they give you an amount and you have to, now you're responsible. You have to watch over them, the sheep. The wolf doesn't steal any of them, things like that. What else? Yes, sir?
Leadership.
Now?
Leadership,
no doubt. Okay. Yes, sir?
Respect.
Respect from?
Sheep.
Okay. Alright, fine. We can put it another way. Say, the Prophet, he managed these animals and they follow whichever way. So same thing's going to happen later on. What else? You know something? One of the best seerah books, they put 7 benefits. And you know how many we could come up with? 20-something. Because in that book, it's one person contemplating from one angle, maybe, or 2 or 3. But here, we're a group, and we come up with phenomenal things. Someone had their hand up in the back? Yes.
Yeah. Considering the fact that there's a lot of time that they can look around and reflect on how the sustenance comes to the sheep and the sun and the moon and the creation and things like that. So it's more of a peace time to reflect on the creation of Allah.
Excellent. Very good point. Yeah. You can reflect on the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a job that allows you to do that. And being close to nature reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. True or false?
True.
And all of us now, when we leave the city, we go out to the mountains and we see beautiful things. We say, subhanallah, and Allah created all of this. You remember, nature reminds you of Allah. Now, traffic. And nobody sits in traffic and sees all the taillights in front of us. Allah, subhanallah. And you just want to, Allah give us over. Especially in this area, right? So, fantastic. What else do we have? Yes, sir.
لكم فيها جمال.
تفضل شيخ. اتفضل.
لكم فيها جمال.
نعم, صحيح. The Shaykh is quoting a verse from Surah Al-Nahl, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that there's beauty for you in the herds, but the livestock as well. Yani, it's phenomenal that Allah Azza wa Jal made it a source of income, but also beauty in looking at it itself. It's a sort of, as you come in, as you go, you see this is your herd, this is your wealth moving, and their health, and their strength. So another thing, excellent.
Being observant and paying attention to detail.
Absolutely. Yeah, everyone agree, it makes you observant and pay attention to detail, taking care of these sheep. Because you have, those of you who know something about sheep, there's a flock of sheep somewhere here I saw on the road. Yeah? So, you pay attention. Is this one limping? Does this one have a growth here or there? Is this one straying away? And you're paying attention to them, very much so. And you're also paying attention to the fact that the wolf may come and take from them, right? What else? I've got some more, but I'm waiting for you to say that. A lot of things. Hey, tafadhal, yes, sir.
It's time for thinking, and the thought process.
Okay.
Think about it.
Excellent. So beyond just the nature reminding you of Allah Azza wa Jalla, it also allows you to contemplate. It's a calm, you're out there, it's calm, and you get to thinking and clear your head. Yes, sir.
You have to put the needs of others or the community before your needs.
Okay, great. Yeah, you learn to put the needs of others before you. So what does it have to do with the shepherd? The shepherd sits there and he understands their needs to eat, to graze, yeah? And he would probably, the shepherd might rather be, sitting at home with family, chit-chatting, with people, civilization. But he's here and he's learning that aspect as well. What else? Anything else? Look at it from every angle you want to. Yes, sir.
Like protective instincts to protect your herd.
Absolutely. So you learn the protective instincts, and you also learn to accept that there could be loss. True or false? Very true. Because the shepherd, he can lose some of the sheep. wolf, coyote, whatever it is, comes, takes one, he comes home with one less, so he begins to understand the ideal, I can lose from my flock, and just like the ummah, you can lose from the followers, from the faithful. Now, excellent. So you do learn guidance. It's in very simple terms with the animals, but at the same time it's also a level of guidance as well. Now,
total reliance of Allah in sustenance, and also humbleness.
okay,
Or just being down to earth.
excellent. Very good. Pleasure. For the saying, you totally rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? And it's the kind of work where you rely on Allah Azza wa Jalla a lot, the help of these animals, they eat, they procreate, another one is born, no complications, yeah? Much so, more so than maybe a software engineer. Yeah? And then the other thing you said was? Humble, humility, you learn to be humble. And what's proof that this is something that teaches humility? One proof is Umar radiallahu anhu during the end of his khilafah, not in his khilafah actually. He gathered people and then he told them that he used to do what? He gathered all the people, just out of the blue, gathered everyone, they sat in the masjid, and he got up and he told them that I used to be, a young boy, and I would, look after the sheep of Bani so-and-so, and they'll give me just a little bit of money, and then he sat down. People said, you gathered this to tell us this? So he explained to them that he started to become proud of himself, because now look, you're Amir al-Mu'mineen, you're the Khalifa of the people, and so he wanted to humble himself. And he humbled himself by mentioning being a shepherd, which means being a shepherd is something that's humble. So ahsan, jazakallah khair. That's a good point. What else? Now. Strategy, right? You come up with a plan. You also pick the best grounds. Where am I going to let them feed? Yeah? And where should I take them? Which path should I take them through? So you do learn to strategize at some point. So hey, it's not an intricate level, but it's still a good level, right? You learn to strategize like that. And what else? Fadal.
Business. It's a business.
It's a business, right? And Ahsan, very good. And it also shows that people trust you with that. Because people give you their sheep most of the time, and this was the job of Prophet to look after people's sheep. So they give you their sheep, and then you bring them back, and it shows that they trust you, because you can easily slaughter one and have barbecue and come back, Allah, the wolf, surprise me, Allah. So that will work as well. Excellent. I'll tell you something else, something interesting. It's amazing that Allah Azza wa Jalla chose His prophets to be shepherds and not camel herders. Is there a difference?
Yes.
There's a big difference. Sah? There's a big difference. And maybe, we live here, we don't know the difference between akhlaq of camels and akhlaq of sheep. But there's a huge difference. Sheep, they're what? They're weak, they're mild, they're gentle. You say, ish, and they all go like this. Camels, you need to be rough to deal with camels. Yeah? And if you've ever seen a camel herder, even sitting with them is not a fun experience. Because to move this animal, they yell, and they hit, and they beat them, so it makes them become rough. Imagine the prophets were camel herders before becoming prophets. Everyone would be scared of the prophets of Allah. Prophets come, everybody out, leave. So that's another advantage as well. And also there's some other things. So for example, psychologists, they always compare human beings to what? To sheep. You always hear this? Psychologists always say human beings are like sheep. Meaning if one leads, the rest will follow. If one does something, the rest will. And there are many experiments that show this as well. That if the majority of people are doing something, like if everyone, like the experiment with the dark room, people are sitting in the dark room, and the more people are in the room, the less chance you will have of turning on the light. Why is everyone sitting in the dark? If there are 50 people sitting in the dark, why don't you sit with them? You sit in the dark as well. So the psychologists, they say human beings are like sheep. So it's interesting that the prophets were also entrusted with dealing with an animal that has the same mode of behavior as human beings as well. Yes?
Honesty.
No?
Honesty.
Absolutely. We said honesty because obviously it teaches you to be honest, and people think of you as honest before they give you their sheep. Last one?
Discipline.
Discipline.
Like you can do many other things with your time, but the sheep itself provides you with so many things, like milk, its fur, there's so many benefits that you can reap. It's such a slow or
excellent. Alright, so no doubt then you get discipline and all the other benefits from the sheep. So now we've come up with, I don't know how many, but I'm sure far more than 7. 14? Okay, very good. And if we kept going, we've gathered up to 23 at some point. So now already we did something that, especially in Seerah books, I purposely look for how many benefits they put under Prophet being a shepherd. And actually most books don't put benefits. I've seen one book that put 3 and the maximum a book put 7. And in a few minutes we came up with 14. Now I hope this has brought the point home. The Seerah of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it is so deep that you can keep contemplating it and keep looking at it and coming with benefits and points and things to benefit from. And as you know, people have been looking at the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ for 1400 years. And every time there are other benefits. And even our times today, something happens and we can relate it to the Seerah. And maybe you read this story so many times, but you look at it from one angle and you think to yourself, wow, I never looked at it from this way. Or something happens in your life. That's why after 9/11, many of the Muslims in America could very easily identify with the Meccan era of the Seerah. True or false? Now when I taught the Seerah course in South Africa, people couldn't understand what I'm talking about. They just don't understand what I'm talking about. You know, they don't have the issues that we experience, especially this tri-state area, mashallah, after 9/11. They didn't have all the problems that we had. So they couldn't understand what I'm telling them about, talking to them about, you know? So different events, different things, different discoveries make you agree with the Seerah, go back to it and say, wow, this is amazing. I never realized this point or that point. And now but this is related to our topic because we're going to talk about Badr, so bear with me. So not only that, I want to say that you can look at the same story, but if you pause and look at one aspect of it, this is one thing we learn in this other course that I teach on the Seerah, that if you pause at every little point, you come up with some kind of benefit. And the story changes to you. And I'll tell you something that we all know. We all know that when the Prophet ﷺ raced with Aisha radiallahu anha. True or false? We all know this. Who's heard of this? Almost every one of us, we know. Prophet ﷺ raced with Aisha radiallahu anha. Led the army advance. This is one of the expeditions they're coming back. And so he raced with her. And then years later they raced again and she had become heavier and he outran her. Right? Now this story we know it. Now you add one more point and the story becomes a lot more beautiful. How old was the Prophet when he raced with Aisha? He was 55 years old. You see how the story changed now? Now it's amazing. 55-year-old man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's still doing this with his wife, racing with his wife. And look at some of the cultures now and some of the things related to the wife. The husband just comes like this. His food has to be ready. You know, and then he takes a nap, and don't dare wake him up when he takes his nap, and this is it. This is a good man. He put his foot on her neck, and this is a good man. But the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wasn't like that. How many 55-year-olds do we know would race with their wife? It's beneath me to do that. Prophet would sit and listen to stories from his wife. Long stories, right? The hadith of Zara. It's a long hadith of Bukhari. It's just a funny story about 11 women who would basically rat on their husbands, right? And Prophet listened to the whole story. But this is the interesting thing. He was really listening. He didn't just sit and do what we do now to our wives, right? They're talking, we're like, We're not really listening. Then they ask, are you listening to me? And of course, sisters don't know this, but all men, we have a recording device here. It records about 20 seconds. So when you ask, are you listening to me? I pause and I rewind and I say, yes, of course. You said Fatima shouldn't have done that to the other sister. Oh, okay. So then they keep going. So you see now the story becomes different. I'll give you one more and then we'll start with our point, yeah? You know, we all know, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he was approached by Jibreel in the cave, Jibreel Alayhi Salam said, Iqra, right? What's the answer of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? We all know the story. Probably nobody in this room that doesn't know the story. Even the little children know it, right? But now if we focus on the same story that we've known our whole lives, suddenly it becomes very different. Because, first of all, where was the Prophet? In the cave of Hira, right? He's in the cave, and how long was he in the cave? A lot of scholars believe this happened on the 27th, and I mean the 27th of Ramadan. So he spent 20-some days alone in the cave. And you know that Khadija radiallahu anha would even send him food there. And she would instruct the servants to leave the food at the front of the door of the cave, which is really wise on her part. So because if they go in and they give the news and the gossip of what's happening in town and stuff, then it defeats the purpose of the Prophet leaving town, right? So she said, leave the food at the door and leave. Very wise woman. So that means then 27 or 20 some days of absolute silence. And cities back then, they weren't loud like cities now. Cars moving and making noise. And it was very, very quiet. You can imagine now in the darkness, in this quiet, in this cave, Prophet didn't hear anyone climbing up, because it's actually quite a climb. And he didn't hear rocks falling, he didn't hear footsteps, anybody climbing up. He was there for hours, it was very quiet. Suddenly from inside the cave he hears someone say, "Iqra," read or recite. Now, to understand this story, put yourself in that position. What would you do? No? Run. Okay, some of us would run, others would worry. Yeah, because when someone startles you, someone faint. Okay. And when you startle like that, what do? You become angry as well, right? And so if someone asks you to do something, you're like, "What? Read what? Wait a minute, I got 1,001 questions for you. Who are you? How long you've been sitting here? How did you get up here? Huh? And how did you know I'm here?" You have 1,000,000 questions first. The Prophet ﷺ responds. He's startled and he responds. He says, "Read." And can you imagine the excellent manners of the Nabi ﷺ? He's sitting there for hours upon hours, and suddenly someone from inside the cave, he didn't hear anyone walking up, says, "Read." And he immediately says, "What should I read?" And he's startled. What manners? Yeah? The good manners show first from the Prophet ﷺ. And we'd be like, "Who are you?" And you want to defend yourself, and you want to grab the guy and get information out of him, and all kinds of things. But Nabi ﷺ, his good manners prevailed so much that the first thing he answered the question. And notice, second time, recite or read. And the Nabi ﷺ says, "I'm on the earth," or "What should I read?" Whichever way you look at it, right? And even until the end, no questions from the side of the Prophet. You want to get a feel of how well-mannered he was? Take it from this story. Until the end, he's like, before you leave, by the way, who are you? How'd you get up here? All right? And what do you want? None of that. Fantastic. So, I don't know. Did that prove the point of how you look at a story again in one detail? If you analyze it more, it makes it so much more beautiful. And there are many, many, many things like that. So with that, I encourage everyone to, if you have the Sira book that you read a few pages every night before you go to sleep, look at it now from a different angle. Not just the storytelling aspect, but every little thing. And then you learn to ask why did the Prophet do this and not that? Why did he do this and not the other? I know this is, but bear with me, this is too exciting for me. Yeah. So one more time. And Nabi ﷺ, he went to a Taif, true, to give him da'wah, right? A Taif is how far away from Medina? It's about 60 kilometers. Okay, convert that to miles. I spent too long in Canada. It's about 60 kilometers from Medina to a Taif. Now, the Prophet, did he have? Could he have gotten a riding animal, a horse, a camel, things like that? Absolutely. But he walked. Right. So when you read this story, who did he take with him? Zayd ibn Haritha. Right? Okay. Wait a minute. You could have taken a delegation. Abu Bakr and Umar and Hamza and Uthman and Ali and Bilal and. You could have taken a powerful delegation so they wouldn't pelt him with stones and rocks on his troop, but he took only Zayd ibn Haritha and he walked. So now we all know the story and we read this part, but learn to pause and say, wait a minute, why did he walk? He could have taken a riding animal. And why did he just take Usama or Zayd ibn Haritha? He could have taken a group of people. So now what happens? Then the same story that we've known for years, suddenly you see the brilliance of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As you know, excuse me, the problem with going to a Taif was that who had passed away? Abu Talib. And now the Prophet ﷺ doesn't have protection. He said it is known that even the riffraffs would come now and attack the Prophet because he had no one to protect him. So now he needed to get protection from somewhere else. And within Mecca, he found it not possible, so now he's going to another city. Just the fact that he chose a Taif was phenomenal in and of itself. Okay, because it was in a way rivaling the Quraysh. Because who knows which statue they had? They had Hubal. They had Hubal, which was a big and known god there for the Arabs. And here they had Lat and Uzza, but they had Hubal. They had potential to compete with Mecca. So now the Quraysh will be very upset if they find out that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is going to try to get Taif on his way. Another important point. Again, you see how brilliant the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was. The road of the caravans of the Quraysh go near a Taif, or close to a Taif. So if Taif falls under the control of Muslims, the Quraysh are threatened from many different sides. You see, the Quraysh might accept Islam because they compete with Quraysh, and so they might say, well, this gives us a heads up or a leg up over them. Anyways, you understand why he chose the Taif. There's wisdom in it. He didn't just say, oh, it's close, let's go. Then why did he walk? Why did he take only Zayd ibn Haritha? Because, like we said, they don't want the Prophet now to seek outside help. So now, who is Zayd ibn Haritha? Before Islam, he used to be the adopted son of the Prophet. So when the Quraysh see the Prophet walking with Zayd, all they see is a man walking with his adopted son. And he's not with a camel and provision. So it just looks like they're just going somewhere on an errand. So it doesn't arouse suspicion. You see? Now the story, did it change or not? So different now, because you looked at the wisdom of the Prophet. Actually, the details got you to recognize the wisdom. And I promised that I would stop there, but there's so many stories and just little points, and you think, why did he do that? Why did he do that? And why did he send Mus'ab ibn Umair to give da'wah in Medina? I would send Abu Bakr. I would ask Abu Bakr for everything, right? Wouldn't you? He's the best of the ummah after the Prophet. I say, Abu Bakr Zakul Khair, take care of this. Abu Bakr Zakul Khair. Everything I would send Abu Bakr. But he sent Mus'ab ibn Umair. When you analyze why Mus'ab ibn Umair, you say, genius. Likewise, the Prophet when he took the Buraq to Bayt al-Maqdis, he tied it to the post in the masjid. And it wasn't some wild animal, it's an animal that understood language. Jibreel spoke to it. It knew who was riding it. It came from the heavens. Why the Prophet tie it? It's not like Buraq's going to run away somewhere. That's how you're going to catch that, right? Anyways, so with that, then let's look at some of the issues concerning the Battle of Badr, inshallah. And with the Battle of Badr, we're not going to go over the battle in details of this happened and that happened. Yeah. But we'll try just to focus on some of the lessons that come out of it, and perhaps then we'll open the floor up and you can chime in with your observations as well and what you have realized. So we know that the Battle of Badr, initially, it came as a result of another Ghazwa Shayra, which was an expedition in which the Prophet ﷺ attempted to intercept the caravan of the Quraysh. So the caravan of the Quraysh, they had these two caravans that would go to Yemen and to Sham, or the area of Syria, back and forth, winter and summer. So this was part of the trade and the livelihood of the Meccans. So the caravan now was going on its way out from Mecca. The Prophet tried to intercept it. He took a number of men with him, and they tried to cross back to the caravan and intercept it and take the wealth from it. Why? And what's the reason? How would that be justified? It's justified because the Quraysh, as you know, they took everything from the Muslims. They took their homes, and some of them never got their homes back. Some of them actually left with just the shirt on their back. They never got anything. And they were totally robbed and they were not compensated. Some of them gave up their gold, their life savings, if you want to say. They gave it up for the sake of their freedom and so on and so forth. But this is a time, and there was hostility between the two, so it was fair game, as you would say. So now, the Nabi ﷺ was going to intercept his caravan on its way. And Ghazwat Ashira is not popular because they missed it. They didn't catch the caravan on the way there. So now on the way back, they said, let's try again. That attempt became the Battle of Badr. So on the way back, Abu Sufyan himself, he was aware, because they tried to get him on the way. So on the way back, he's also aware that Muslims are going to try to capture the caravan again. It has the wealth of the Quraysh in it. And Nabi ﷺ had sent two people to scout to try to see when the caravan comes. So Abu Sufyan started to ask questions. So he asked someone, did you see anyone kind of like scouting, lurking around, anyone out of place or anything suspicious? And the man tells him, yes, there were two people who were camped over there. They drank from a container and they left. So Abu Sufyan goes there and he examines where they camped or where they're settled, and he finds the camel dung, and he takes it, dry dung, he breaks it in his hand, and he finds date seeds or date pits in the dung. So he knew that these camels or these two people were from Medina. How he knew it is that Medina, as you know, is a place of dates. And they had so many dates that they were the only ones who could afford to feed dates to their camels. Whatever the bad dates, the ones the birds ate, the leftovers, they would give it to their camels. So their camels, the fodder, or the camel dung had in it the date pits. So that's how he knew that these people were from Medina. Not necessarily that he recognized this species of dates and said this is a Medina date, as sometimes you find that in some books. Wallahu a'lam. In any case, so now the Prophet ﷺ wants to intercept this caravan. And that's how it starts out. It doesn't start out as a battle. That's why the Prophet ﷺ didn't call everyone out to jihad. He didn't call everyone out to jihad. And he didn't say everyone has to go out. That's why there were many people who didn't attend Badr. How many people were in the Battle of Badr? Yeah, the narrations go from as low as 300 to up to 317. People generally accept the 313, 314 mark. So not obviously there were many more people than that in Medina. That's one reason Uthman didn't go. It wasn't a battle. It was just an attempt to intercept the caravan. And the caravan was guarded by 60 men, or 60-some men. And there are 313 in this army. It should be easy. It shouldn't be a problem. They were only equipped to deal with 60 men. They took enough weapons to deal with just 60 men, right? And so Uthman radiallahu anhu, he was married to Ruqayya, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, and she was ill. And so the Prophet ﷺ told him that stay with her and to nurse her. Yeah, that's why Uthman radiallahu anhu wasn't in the Battle of Uhud. So Abu Sufyan now realized that the Muslims now have sent scouts. That means they're going to try to capture us one more time. So he did a number of things. One, he sent a message to the Quraysh to really alarm them and alert them of the seriousness and the gravity of the situation. So he sends a man by the name of Damdam, and this guy comes in and does some drastic and dramatic things to get everyone excited and everything. And so people start to scramble up an army. But Abu Sufyan changed the route, and he was able to avert or to avoid meeting or running into the Muslims. The Muslims now, the 313, hear that the Quraysh now are sending an army to meet us. It has over 1,000 people, and they have 313. And they've got camels and horse riders, and the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't have that many. Badr was 100 miles away from Medina. And they had each 3 men, so this is 300, let's say 300 men, each 3 would share 1 camel, and it's 100 miles away. And the Prophet ﷺ shared his camel with Ali radiallahu anhu and Abu Lubaba. And then Abu Lubaba radiallahu anhu goes back to become the Amir of Medina. That's why you'll find in some books that Mirthad, or Mirthad ibn Abi Mirthad, was the other one who shared the camel with the Prophet ﷺ. So, Ali and Mirthad ibn Abi Mirthad and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sharing 1 camel, and Badr is 100 miles away. So how much did the Prophet ﷺ walk? Not 30 something, 66 miles at least. That's how much the Prophet ﷺ walked on his 2 feet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, would you let the Prophet ﷺ walk while you're on the camel for 1/3 of the journey? Would you? No. You'd be very uncomfortable. I'm riding the Prophet ﷺ, Prophet of Allah is walking. You refuse, right? And of course, Ali refused in the beginning. And Abu Lubaba refused. The Prophet ﷺ argued with him. He said, you're not stronger than me so that you would walk and I ride. And I'm strong. That's 1. 2, I am not, this is amazing coming from the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. He says, I'm not in any less need of reward than you. Imagine, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, it's not like I don't need reward and you need the reward. So you walk and get reward and I ride. So of course, he refused ﷺ, as you would expect from him. So he actually then walked for 66 or 2/3 of the journey, 66 miles or more, or less. And he rode only for 1/3 of the journey. This was the Prophet ﷺ. So when they arrived there, the Muslims, they now knowing that there's an army coming to meet them, they were more interested in meeting the caravan, not the army. And that's what Allah says, وَتَوَدُّونَ لَوْ أَنَّ غَيْرَ ذَاتِ الشَّوْكِ تَكُونُ لَكُمْ. You wish that the one, meaning of the 2 groups, of less power, without power. The powerful one is the army, the other, the 60 men guarding the caravan. Most people wanted to meet the caravan. So when they sent scouts out, they captured 2 water boys for the Quraysh. came to get water for the army. So they brought them to the Muslim camp to interrogate them while the Prophet ﷺ was praying. So the Muslims asked them, who are you with? And the Muslims were hoping that these people would be with the caravan of Abu Sufyan. So they asked them, who are you with? They said, we're with the army. So they pressured them and beat them until they said, we're with the caravan. So the Prophet ﷺ finished the salah. Now this is as early as Badr. He finished his prayer and he came to them. And he was surprised and he was not pleased. He said, Subhanallah, when they tell you the truth, you beat them. And when they tell you the lie, you let them go. So this is that early that the Nabi ﷺ was teaching us that torture doesn't work. Torture doesn't work. And because the person will say anything to stop the pain. Yeah? And this was the case in Europe for a long time. In their dark ages and things, they had some severe methods of torture to get you to admit to something. Yeah? They had something with like a big screw that they would keep screwing onto your fingernail. You just tighten it. Did you steal the orange? What do you say? No. They tighten it. Of course, I stole the orange. I stole the bananas. I stole the peaches. Just let go, you know. They had another technique. They would burn you with a red hot piece of metal. They would burn you with it, and depending on how your burn looks a few days later, if it blisters severely, something like you were guilty, and if the blisters like take a while to develop, then you were innocent. Or they had another technique that if they tied you in an awkward way, and they put a weight on you, and they throw you in the river, and if you float, you're guilty, and if you drown, miskin Allah, he was innocent. And what kind of a system is this? Yeah? You know, both ways you lost. Yeah. And so this is the problem with torture. And the person they will keep inflicting pain until the person says what the interrogator wants them to say, or the person doing the torturing. So our Prophet ﷺ taught us a long time ago, the first military altercation, and he's teaching us that this is not a good technique, and it doesn't work. Because they told you the truth the first time. Then you hit them, and they said what you wanted them to say to you, because you inflicted pain on them. And it's a shame that now, now what's the status of torture in the world? Some places claim they don't do it, but realistically, most people do it. Most people torture. But it's very sad for us, for the Muslims to hear, because we learned this lesson a long time ago. In Europe, they were still treating each other in a barbaric way. We learned this, and today, when people in the West want to torture someone, where do they send him? We keep this between us, right? They send him to the Muslim lands, right? And they'll meet you at the airport there with red carpet, the red of your blood, by the way. And then they torture you. It's a big shame for the Muslim Ummah. But alhamdulillah, at least we can distance this from Islam, because there is no such teaching in Islam. So then the Prophet said them, and one of the things that happens is they settled in one area, and the Kuffar settled in another area. And the Muslims settled closer to the water basin that was in that area, the water supply. So now they're in control of the water supply. Now when the Prophet settled in one area before that, he settled the army there, one of the companions asked him a question. It's a very important point. This was Al-Hubab ibn al-Mundir, he asked the Prophet, he said, is this place where we camp, is this revelation from Allah so that we cannot take a step forward or backwards? And if Allah commanded you to settle here with the army, we can't settle there or move back or forward. We have to settle here. Or is it from al-harb wal-makid, from like a stratagem of war or a tactic from your own estimation? So the Prophet said, it's not revelation, just as a war tactic, we'll camp here. So then Al-Hubab ibn al-Mundir suggested that let's camp in this other place, because we have control of the water, it's also the higher ground, and so on and so forth. And the Prophet accepted his suggestion, and they recamped or resettled the army in that area. Now, nice story, innocent, nothing wrong with it. Someone smart in the army, he made a good suggestion. But here's the problem now. Some people, and this is how to not deduce lessons out of the seerah. Some people said, this is proof that you can put your opinion over the opinion of the Prophet. How on earth did you see this out of the narration? But this is a big movement now, and they always talk about, re-evaluating, and if the Prophet said it, doesn't even have to do it, there could be a better idea, a better opinion. And so, this is of course the answer to that. First of all, a lot of times the Prophet will give commands. And when he gives commands, you can't play games with those. And many times, this group, they take this law, this rule of theirs, even they apply it to commands. The Prophet said, do this, and then they say, well, no, the times have changed, and we can do it like this now. Right. The first thing is that, that's the first thing. The second thing was that the Al-Hubab al-Mundhir asked the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if this was a stratagem of war, and so he wanted to suggest something else. He didn't necessarily, he was going to suggest something. Imagine the Prophet insisted, no, we're going to settle here. You think Al-Hubab would have insisted also? It would have been the end of that. So the thing is, they don't have the Prophet today, so they can ask him, is this issue, an opinion or stratagem of war? Is it your revelation? You don't have that option. The comparison is wrong to begin with. Yeah. And of course, the final fun fact is that there's not a single sahih narration of this incident. And as we know, with the seerah, it's more lax with the authenticity and levels of narration, but we can still authenticate narrations. And so many stories you'll find popular but weak and still in seerah books. Like for example, someone gives an example of a weak story, the seerah. The spider web that covered the cave, the mouth of the cave. It's a weak story. Or even the dove that laid an egg. It's a weak story. But it's still in seerah books because there's a level of acceptance. It's not as stringent when it comes to narrations in the seerah. Also, the song they sang, coming from Medina, طَلَعَ الْبَدْرُ عَلَيْنَا. Yeah, it has weakness. Actually, it's weak, but for those who are angered now, the good news is that, as some scholars said that, this actually happened on the return from Tabuk, because Thaniyat al-Wada' is actually in the direction coming back from Tabuk, not from Mecca. But more good news, some scholars said, there could have been more than one Thaniyat al-Wada', so it's okay. So go ahead and sing along, I think. It's no problem. Now, the point is now also with the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, it becomes an important point now, because there is a movement to dissect the life of the Prophet ﷺ and categorize it. And so if I give you a hadith telling you, akhi, you shouldn't do that because the Nabi ﷺ said in the hadith in Bukhari, this and that. Then they'll tell you, no. Here, the Prophet ﷺ was talking to Aisha. So he's not talking as a prophet to his ummah or his followers. He's just talking as a man to his wife. Then you show him another hadith, no. Here the Prophet ﷺ is talking to Abu Bakr. It's a man talking to his best friend. You show him another hadith talking to Fatima. That's a man talking to his daughter. It doesn't apply to me. La habib, that's not how we play this game. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ says and whatever Allah says, we do our best to implement that. Then if we can't, maybe scholars will find the fatwa because of this specific situation or that circumstance. But for the first thing is the Muslims try their best to implement what the Nabi ﷺ says. So that was the narration of the Hubab al-Mundhir. We don't conclude from it that it means you can re-evaluate whatever the Nabi ﷺ says. Because of the Prophet ﷺ, he was sent and Allah commanded us to obey him. Over 60 verses in the Quran, Allah is telling us to obey the command of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah equates obeying the Prophet to obeying Allah Azza wa Jalla. مَنْ يَطِعَ الرَّسُولِ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهِ. Whoever obeys the Prophet, he has indeed obeyed Allah. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ. So on and so forth. So, going back to the Battle of Badr. So then that night, now here, some analysis, and sometimes you'll find, maybe speakers and maybe they might exaggerate with Badr and say, and one time I heard someone say, Badr has nothing to do with human beings. Badr is angels. Badr is not human work. Badr is Allah's work, and angels. But the truth is, that's not the case. How many angels took part in Badr? 5,000, right? Or 1,000? 1,000? Who says 5,000? Who says 1,000? Who says? Okay. Right. So that means then, do you really need 1,000 angels or 5,000 to deal with 1,000 Meccans? You really don't. Because one could take care of that, right? So why did Allah send 5,000 or 1,000? Why? Because really what it is just it builds the morale of the Muslims. Because we know that Jibreel alayhi salam, how many wings did he have? Does he have? 600. So he didn't even use a wing. With the tip of one wing, he took the people of Lut like this, the whole village, all the way up to the first heaven. So the angels there heard the barking of the dogs and the crowing of the roosters, and flipped it and brought it upside down. With the tip of one wing of his 600 wings. So, did we need 5,000 angels to help defeat 1,000, or 1,000 angels to defeat 1,000? Not really. So it was there to raise morale. Imagine now, there's, let's just hypothetically say there's something happening across the street. Some people drinking and smoking, and maybe even smoking something illegal, and they tell you, go and, forbid what's evil, brother. We chose you. Go and tell them to stop doing what they're doing. Now you know there's going to be some bodily harm, right? But imagine Allah reveals to you that go to them and there will be 40 angels with you. There are only 30 guys. There are 40 angels with you. How will you cross that street? Like this? You're just going to cross. You're not even going to look both ways across the street. You're just going to be like, walk up to those guys and say, this ends now. Understand? Now. Give me 5 seconds. It gives you that confidence, right? And that's what happens then. It gave the Muslims confidence, immense confidence, that angels are going to fight with them. So you can't argue that, well, it has nothing to do with humans because the angels did all the work. No. Because out of the 1,000, okay, how many people died in Badr? How many people died from the Muslims? 14. And how many people died from the non-Muslims? Or the Meccans? 70 or 70 some, right? So, are you telling me all these thousands of angels and they could only get 70 people? It's not. They got a lot more than that. I mean, they could have gotten more than that. But they were only there for that kind of reinforcement, moral and morality. And that's why the angels, what kind of swords did they have?
Lightsabers.
Swords of lightsabers, swords of fire, right? And so the narration, one of the companions narrates that after the Battle of Badr, we looked at all the people that had burn marks on them, and there were a few out of the 70. And some were captured by the angels and so on and so forth. But the idea is that, Badr, a lot of it, there was human work involved, but there was also assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Much of that happened. First of all, before the battle itself, just the places that they camped and the rain that fell. And so rain fell on both camps. But on one side, it was a light rain, which was good because what it did was it made the ground kind of nice and firm. Sometimes you spray, and these things are hard to explain here in North America. But the ground gets wet and it becomes just good and firm enough. Horses can walk on it nicely. You don't sink into it. On the other side, everything became muddy, absolutely muddy. On this side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the companions or the soldiers to fall into like a slumber the night before. And usually when you're stressed out and you're worried, you don't really fall asleep. Well, some people are different. People faint and stuff. But here, you're stressed about a battle, but people can barely stay up. Sword would drop, pick it up again. Sword would drop, pick it up again. Very comforting on this side, chaotic on the other side. And in the morning, other divine assistance, Allah Azza wa Jal caused the Quraysh, whenever they looked at the Muslims, even though they were 3 times less or fewer, when they looked at the Muslims, they saw them more than their army. And on the other side, whenever the Muslims looked at the army of the Quraysh, what did they see? They estimated about 70 people or something like that. So what does that do? It makes you feel like it's no big deal, piece of cake, right? So, and then beyond that, they were all under unified under the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Qum ya Ubaidah," and then he says, "Qum Hamza, Qum ya Ali." So I asked for Ubaidah and Hamza and Ali radiallahu anhuma, And the interesting thing is the three of them are related to the Prophet or from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. Which shows you, yani, he is a leader in the true sense that he is going to and he's going to himself take part in the battle. And the second thing, when he puts people in such a position to meet the fiercest three warriors, he picks relatives of his or people from his family versus, pick some stranger, we don't know who's that guy. Send him, send that guy, and send the other guy. He sends people from his family, and he doesn't just put other people in danger. And which is, and if you want to do American politics, which is what happens now. You look at all the politicians, they send other people's children to war, and most of them, you look at their children, and they're either studying in good universities, and they have their cars, and they're comfortable. You send someone else's son, I won't send my son. But this is the leadership of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He sent people from his own family to do so. And he's sending them to do something that's dangerous, or could get you killed. Yeah. And here it's the opposite. People favor their relatives for things that will bring them money and comfort and things like that, which is what we see all over the world. We see it everywhere. We see it in the West. We see it. It's not just Muslim lands, but Muslim and non-Muslim lands. We see people, they give, there's favoritism, and they give the better positions to friends, to relatives, to people who have been with them for a long time, and so on and so forth. Even though we have Umar radiallahu anhu, remember this narration, really phenomenal. And you'll find now easily, you'll find a president in some Muslim country, and his wife has, factories and companies, and then ministers, and they're millionaires. Why should you be a millionaire if you're just some minister somewhere? You get a salary, and they'll build a cement factory, then they'll issue a law that every sidewalk has to be cemented. And by the way, I have a cement factory. Very unethical, yeah. Umar radiallahu anhu now, contrast to that, saw some fat camels one time. So he asked, whose camels are those? So they said, these camels belong to your son Abdullah, the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he goes to his son Abdullah. So where'd you get these camels? So I bought me some money that I had, and I'm going to let them, grow in the pasture and so on, and then I'm going to sell them for profit. So you sell them, and you give all the profit. You take your capital back, and you give the profit to the treasury of the Muslims. Anything haram here? You see anything haram happening? Nothing. No, nothing haram happening here. Nothing prohibited. He bought from his own money. He didn't borrow the money from the treasury or take it from the Muslims. He bought it from his own money. They're going to feed until they grow, they become bigger and adults. They're going to sell them and keep the profit. Makes sense. Allah says, no, you can't do it. You sell them, you keep your capital, and you get rid of the profit. You put it in the treasury of the Muslims. So the Amir al-Mu'mineen, I bought them from my own money. What's the problem? He says, yes, but the people are going to take extra care. They were in a place where all the camels would hurt. He said, the people will give extra care to your camels because of your father's position. So they will say, take to pasture first the camels of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Give the water first to the camels of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And so your camels will get fat or fatter because there's some favoritism shown to the camels. Now, fiqh-wise, is this permissible? Fiqh-wise, is there anything haram in this money? No. Nothing wrong whatsoever. Umar is that careful. This degree of being careful is known as al-wara'. Yeah, al-wara'. Wara' is just this high, fine level of taqwa. This wara' is like when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu ate the haram dates without knowing. He didn't know. So realistically, is it halal for him? Yes. But from wara', he didn't want to keep it in his stomach. Now, again, yes, there are haram dates, but for you it was halal. But he didn't want them to stay in his stomach. From wara', he vomited. So if you go to a restaurant and you eat something, and you take one bite, then you're suspicious. You call the waiter, says, "Is there pork in this?" Tells you, it's made from broth. That's pork or something. You have to go vomit in the parking lot? You don't, actually. Because from a fiqh standpoint, if you want to, enjoy yourself. But from a fiqh standpoint, you don't have to. Because when you ate it, it was halal. You didn't know that. Okay? And if you ever try to, drink water first. The narration says Abu Bakr drank water first. Okay? And then he went and vomited everything with the water. And I missed this part. I had an incident like that one time. I tried to vomit it. Veins burst in my eyes. Really, my eyes were red for days. And And I looked like a druggie or something. Because I understand, you drink water first. And my stomach was empty. One sip, and I said, oh, let me pull an Abu Bakr around here. Went back to the parking lot. Very good, yeah. So first, if you want to do that, drink first, then go and upcheck, inshallah. Excellent. So then the three come out. We said the Prophet sends family members. They clash, and they basically the Muslims on both from Ali and Hamza. They killed the other two that they faced, but Abu Ubaidah actually he was injured and he dies later on. Possibly related to the injury, or they see some disease in the bile duct, they say. In any case, another interesting thing that happened actually before that is that there was a man from the army of the Quraysh, and he was known to be a wild and ferocious man. So he swore by Allah. Notice he's a pagan. He swore by Allah that he's going to drink from the basin because the Muslims had control of the water. So he's going to drink from it or get killed or die trying. Right? So he goes, and who comes out to meet him? Hamza radiallahu anhu. He knows it's not going to end nicely for him. So Hamza radiallahu anhu strikes him and he hits his shin and he cuts off his leg. Now this is what's amazing. When he falls, this man falls on the floor, he keeps crawling towards the basin. And that would be a good time to retreat, right? He cuts it like, wait a minute, I'm out of here. Just forget the water. You run or hop back. He starts crawling towards the water basin. Why? Because he swore by Allah. And that's what the Arabs say. Back then, yeah. And not the Arabs. People back then were amazing. He swore by Allah, he made an oath by Allah that I'm going to drink or die trying. They cut off his leg, I'm going to keep trying. Unbelievable. Come on, he died in the end. But the point is, he vowed to Allah and it was such a big deal to him. And we're Muslims now and people make vows and oaths and what happens? Nothing. It's a joke. No attempt even to keep them. Yeah? So this is now what's interesting is that if you look and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam the hadith, we all know this hadith, he said خير القرون قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم ثم يفشو الكذب. The best of generations is my generation. Then the ones coming after them, then the ones coming after them, then the lies will spread. Scholars said the lies here, bid'ah. Yeah? But notice the Prophet said the best of generations is my generation. He didn't say just the Muslims. He was speaking about the generations. Scholars say this means the people at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And the truth is, if you look at the kuffar at the time of the Nabi ﷺ and today, which were better? Hands down, they were better. Yani, Abu Jahl, or Abu Sufyan, the number one enemy, doesn't want to be known as a liar. You know? Compare that to Bush, for example. Or even Obama. Okay, good. I'm afraid there will be sensitive issues. Because a lot of Muslims were waiting for Obama like he's the next Messiah or something. Alhamdulillah, that's over with. You know? But you know, he didn't want to be known as a liar. Now lying, that's a big part of leading now. Lie to people. But and this man, he made a vow and he insisted on it. He was a non-Muslim. At that time, there was some kind of quality, besides all the bad and the kufr, they had some qualities that don't exist in non-Muslims today, for example. Also, Hind bint Utbah, when the Prophet took the pledge from the women after the conquering of Mecca, he said, you pledge, that you do this and do this and do this, and then you don't do this and you don't do this, and you do not commit zina. You don't fornicate. Hind bint Utbah said, أَوَ تَزْنِ الْحُرَّةِ. Notice she's a pagan until that point. She said, a free woman commits zina? Free woman fornicates? Now look at free women. Forget non-Muslims. Fortunately, even with Muslims, this is an issue now. So anyway, so just some interesting qualities here. And so when someone makes an oath or vows to do something for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, then they put great effort to doing that. Generally, just when we're on the topic of benefits, making a vow, it's not something that's preferred or liked in Islam. And to say, oh Allah, you help me with this, I'll slaughter a sheep and feed the poor. It's not a very life thing in Islam. It's permissible, but it's not the preferred way of doing things. It has a tit-for-tat connotation. Also, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in one hadith that all it does, it makes the stingy person spend. If you're not stingy, you slaughter sheep, give to the poor anyways. Now a stingy person is going to, it's going to force him to spend. Anyways, but what if you swear you're going to do something and you can't do it, for example, or you change your mind? What do you have to do as expiation? In order, number one, is to feed the poor, okay, and fast, and free a slave, right? So actually free a slave, and then feed the poor, and then fast 3 days. And but of course now we don't have the first option, so you feed the poor or fast. If you cannot do that financially, what have you, then you can fast for 3 days. That's why that story with Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he came into the majlis, the gathering of the Khalifa, and they were already discussing an issue. So he said, so what's going on? He said, well, the Khalifa vowed to do something, and now he can't do it, so he's going to free a neck. He's going to free a slave. And that's easy for him. He's got all the money in the treasury, and there's no punishment whatsoever for him, right? I couldn't do it, I swear by Allah, but here, set someone free in the money that's available. So all the scholars around the Khalifa were saying, yes, that's it, ruling's over. Abu Hanifa disagreed. It was very brave of him. He said, no, you have to fast for 3 days. So all the other people were working. First, at least if you're not going to do the free the neck, the second option is to feed the poor. Why did you move to the third? He says, because this is not your money. What courage to say something like that? It's not your money. This is the money, the treasure of the Muslims. You have access to it, but you can't use it to, let's say, to expiate a vow that you made personally, because you have to do it from your own money. And he said, all the money in your hand is not yours. So you have to fast 3 days. What courage. And the Khalifa says, yes, he has spoken the truth. And he fasted 3 days. All the other guys, they give him the fatwa. Sheikh Bender rules, I call it. Plenty of Sheikh Bender rules, right? Alright. Khalas, so I'm told that there are like 5 minutes, so how about we just we stop here then. Let's see if there's any other point that I want to mention. Okay, well, we stop here, and if there's like a minute or two, maybe a question or two, or a comment or two, maybe our Sheikh would like to comment. تفضل يا شيخ, إذا عندك تعليق ولا شيء. تفضل.
نسمع منكم.
الله يحفظك. So our time is up, so we'll say, جزاكم الله خير for being a responsive and attentive audience. اللهم بارك على محمد. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question right now?
Sure.
Remember back then, like 30 minutes ago, we were talking about all the characteristics of a prophet and someone that's watching over like the sheep and whatnot. How would you like describe someone saying like to stay up all day? Because I heard someone say discipline, responsibility is a business life. But what do you describe someone staying up? Because like when you're watching the sheep, you got to stay up. You can't like go to sleep or whatever.
Fantastic.
So how would you like describe that right there? Like staying up.
You mean, is that acceptable as a possible wisdom?
No, I'm saying like that's one of the characteristics and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm saying like how would you describe that? Like just staying up.
Diligence.
Oh, you mean so?
What's the attribute?
So, what is that? What's the word to describe
Yeah.
this? Being able to, I could be a lot of things. Be patient because you want to sit down. It could be diligence. It could be, what's the word when you have azima? Azima.
Will.
Naam?
Will.
Will, strong will. So, it's someone that has strong will, a strong-willed person. And that is, that's a very good point. Very insightful of you.
What was the question, brother? Because a lot of people
Oh,
didn't hear what the question was.
The brother is saying that another. You want to read
Yeah,
it?
try to give me the mic
There you
too.
Okay.
Sweet, thank you.
Everybody will benefit.
Yeah, my question was, how would you describe the characteristic of someone staying up? Since like you're probably up like at 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, watching the sheep. Like, what's the characteristic of someone not going to sleep?
Very good. And we're saying that it's, no doubt, someone has patience, someone has strong will, someone has discipline, and that point has been mentioned by one of the students before. And they said that the fact that Prophet is standing and he has a higher vantage point than the sheep, so he gets to see things from an angle that they don't see it. And likewise, Prophet would see things for his ummah from an angle that we don't see it. And also, if you look, it's amazing and interesting how some of the analogies Prophet would use to explain things, he would use sheep. And he would use herding. Anyone remember any? كلكم راع كلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. All of you are like a shepherd, and you're going to be asked about what you're entrusted with. So I use that analogy. Also another time about the man who herds his sheep near the border of his, like his neighbor's field, and his sheep might eat from his. So he even used that. So it's proof, obviously, that there's some benefit that came out of that. So very good point. And I think it is time to stop. So inshallah we'll stop here, and I would like to again thank all of you for all your input as well. May Allah increase you in insights, and I hope inshallah very much so to see you when we come back. So you've been given the material for the and announcing the dates and so on of the course, and I strongly hope and suggest that you come. There'll be a lot of benefit, and even the experienced du'at especially, I want them to come, and inshallah we'll all benefit from one another. Barakallahu feekum. Sallallahu barak ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.